What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch Podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler, and you can find all of my work at CrumplerBaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Tuesday, March 25th, starting off as always with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league. It's the final day of spring training, so we'll cover the last bit of news as we head into the regular season, starting with third baseman Connor Norby, who was diagnosed with a grade 1 oblique strain and will begin the season on the 10-day IL for the Marlins. He's set to miss the next 4 weeks, which means he's set for a late April or early May return. And with Connor Norby out, that means Graham Pauley and Javier Sanoja, Sanoja, will be splitting time at the hot corner for the Marlins. They'll have a platoon there at third base. Graham Pauley will be on the strong side there. Former top prospect for the Padres. I think he once had displayed some power and speed for the Padres in their minor league system a couple years ago. So maybe he can do that at the major league level with some playing time here for the Marlins, though it will be short-lived. So he's going to have to really perform if he wants to maintain a role when Connor Norby returns from his oblique strain. That's Graham Pauley and Connor Norby. Next, we have some devastating news for relief pitcher Jordan Montgomery, who will undergo Tommy John surgery and miss the remainder of the 2025 season, or I guess the remainder is the whole thing, so he'll miss the entire 2025 season. Very terrible news, especially for the D-backs as well, because not only are they without now one of their top pitchers in Jordan Montgomery, and that sounds like a terrible sentence immediately as I said it, because he was terrible last year, but they gave him a big contract, $23 million per year, 23.75, I think. And he opted into his player option this offseason. So that means Jordan Montgomery do another $23 million. And now after getting a 6+ ERA out of him last year, the Diamondbacks will get 0 innings out of him this year. So really terrible contract there for the Diamondbacks. But Montgomery got his money. Unfortunately, will miss the remainder of the 2025 season. To replace him, Ryan Nelson will be the team's long reliever / swingman. So Ryan Nelson finally getting an opportunity again to pitch for the Diamondbacks in the major leagues. It will be cool to see if he can get a shot in the rotation. I loved what he did in the second half last year. He was one of the Diamondbacks' best pitcher. That's Ryan Nelson. Will get a chance to pitch out of the bullpen. He probably will need an injury or some severe underperformance to get another shot in the rotation. We could also see guys like Yelber Diaz and Christian Mena get a shot at some point later in the year. With Montgomery now out for the whole year, they're really going to be relying on their rotation depth in the desert. Next, we'll talk about Jared Jones and his elbow, and we've got good news here. He's got no torn ligaments, and he will not need surgery. Jared Jones will not pitch for the next 6 weeks, which means we're likely shooting for a June return for the right-handed pitcher for the Pirates. But this is really great news because immediately when you hear that a pitcher is going for a second opinion from a doctor, you're likely assuming that he's going to need Tommy John surgery. So this is actually great news to hear that he will not only return this season, but will return before this first half is complete. So Jared Jones likely due for an early June return this season. Next, we'll discuss third baseman Royce Lewis, who continues to deal with a hamstring strain and has yet to begin baseball activities. Very concerning, considering this is a guy who's dealt with tons of injuries. So the fact that he's taken a while to recover from this one suggests that it's going to be a while until we see him back. Right now, reports are suggesting that he could be out until late April. That's Royce Lewis, out until late April with a hamstring strain. And the last injury we'll discuss is starting pitcher Luis Garcia, not the, starting pitcher clarifies which Luis Garcia I'm talking about. That's the starting pitcher for the Astros. He went to a doctor, got an opinion on his elbow, did not like it. He is now seeking a second opinion similar to Jared Jones. So right now his timeline for return remains unclear. Once we get that second opinion, we should have a better idea of when if Luis Garcia can pitch this season. But right now it remains unclear. Right now he's recovering from Tommy John surgery. This was supposed to be his first season back from Tommy John surgery, but this is a very bad diagnosis early on for Luis Garcia. Hopefully the second opinion is much more positive than the first, and we see Luis Garcia at some point this season. Now we'll discuss our lone transaction as the catcher for the Mariners signed a 6-year, $105 million extension. That's Cal Raleigh signed a huge extension with the Mariners. It buys out 3 years of his free agency, but we'll see Big Dumper in Seattle for many years to come. Very awesome to see. Totally deserved. He's been incredible for them for the past few seasons. Cal Raleigh going to be in Seattle for a long time. Now we'll discuss some news starting. It's going to be mostly opening day roster announcements. And we'll start with the most notable one as the top prospect for the Astros has made the opening day roster. Third baseman Cam Smith has made the opening day roster for the Astros. He's likely to see most of his time in right field, but he displayed the ability to play all over the field, not only in the minors, but also in spring training. Cam Smith should see time not only in right field, but in left field, at second base, and third base. So that multi-position eligibility is really going to hit at some point, especially in Yahoo leagues where you really only need a couple games to get eligibility there. Cam Smith should be pretty dope this year. Just a reminder, 14th overall pick in 2024, number 58 prospect in baseball, and he batted .342 with 4 homers and a 185 WRC plus this spring. So Cam Smith, hopefully huge breakout rookie season upcoming for the Astros. A former Texas rookie that had a breakout season as in his debut campaign, outfielder Evan Carter will not make the opening day roster for the Rangers. He batted just .154 this spring. He's still just 22, so Evan Carter still has the potential to achieve the potential he displayed when he was only 20 when he debuted. This does mean, though, that the Rangers outfield will line up Wyatt Langford, Leody Taveras, and Adolis Garcia, with Kevin Pillar likely being the team's 4th outfielder. In other Rangers news, relief pitcher Mark Church has made the opening day bullpen. He's a young flamethrower, and I don't want to hype him up too much, but I just mentioned him because he does have the potential to get saves at some point, at least in his career. I think he is a guy who's looked at as the closer of the future for the Rangers, but right now I wouldn't suggest that the future is that far away. Right now you got Chris Martin as the closer, Robert Garcia as the setup guy, and righties Luke Jackson and Jacob Webb setting up to those two. So there's a possibility that if Mark Church can command his fastball and really display some elite stuff, he throws 100 miles per hour, he could quickly rise up that bullpen ladder and take over the 9th inning for the Rangers. Don't want to hype him up too much, but definitely worth to keep your eye on there on Mark Church and the Rangers. In other bullpen news, closing pitcher Aroldis Chapman has officially been named as the Red Sox closer for the season. Alex Cora suggested he will be used in some high leverage situations, but should get the bulk of the saves. I think we sort of expected this. Rick Graham and I discussed this on the In the Pen podcast last week, so we've been knowing this for quite a while, but now it's confirmed. Liam Hendricks, Justin Slayton, and Garrett Whitlock are likely to be the next in line for saves. I would expect Justin Slayton, though, to be the number one guy to stash if you're not too convinced that Aroldis Chapman can hold on to this role. Next, we'll discuss relief pitcher Ryan Johnson, who made the opening day bullpen for the Angels. And if you're wondering who that is, so are a lot of people, but unless you follow Jeff Passan, then you probably got a big Passan bomb here as Johnson made the roster and you were like, who is that? He was the 2nd round pick of the Angels in 2024, but he didn't pitch in the minors, which this will make him the first player to debut without pitching in the majors since Garrett Crochet in 2020. Pretty cool here for Ryan Johnson. Definitely look into him. I didn't do enough research to let you know how good he is. He's going to be pitching middle relief innings for the Angels, so not really fantasy relevant. Maybe in super deep holds leagues, Ryan Johnson becomes somebody that is fantasy relevant, but right now it's just a cool story. The last bit of news we'll discuss is starting pitcher Ben Brown, who will be the Cubs' 5th starter. Really cool. We weren't sure what the Cubs rotation was going to look like heading into domestic opening day, as we only saw a pair of starters in Tokyo, but Ben Brown definitely deserves this. Had a 3.58 ERA last year and a 29% strikeout rate. I think he's a guy that is better suited for the bullpen, more of a 2-pitch pitcher, fastball, curveball, and they're both really great pitches, but the Cubs want to keep pushing him as a starter. His final spring start was on Tuesday. He tossed 4 1/3 innings, allowing 6 hits and 2 earned runs. He walked 1 while striking out 4. Pretty solid for his final spring start. So we'll see what Ben Brown can do in his first full season in the Cubs rotation. Next, we'll take a look at the notable performances from Tuesday. But first, we're going to take a quick break here on the First Pitch podcast. And we're back. Now we'll discuss some notable performances from the final day of spring training. We'll start it off with the hitters, leading off with first baseman Kyle Manzardo. He went 1 for 1 with a run, a home run, and an RBI, making the most of his one at bat as he went deep. It was his 4th home run of this spring, and he's now batting .321 with a .999 OPS. We all know that Manzardo was a top prospect for the Guardians. I guess still could be considered one. He made his debut last year, though, and he struggled. So a lot of the prospect shine wore off there with Kyle Manzardo. But displaying what we saw in the minors here in spring training, and he should be on the strong side of a DH platoon in Cleveland. So Kyle Manzardo still on track to have a potential breakout season here in his sophomore campaign. The other batter I'd like to focus on is catcher Hunter Goodman. He plays for the Rockies, and yesterday he went 1 for 3 with a run, a home run, and a pair of RBIs. It was his 3rd home run this spring, and he's now batting .444 with a 1322 OPS this spring. Goodman is interesting because not only does he have catcher eligibility, and he should maintain it through the year and into the following season, but he will also be used as a utility guy for the Rockies. Last year, he played outfield, first base, and DH on top of catcher, so he's got the ability to play all over, which means his playing time is likely to be higher than most catchers. He also won't have as much of a strain on his body as he won't be behind the plate every day. So I think Hunter Goodman has a potential to be a really sneaky catcher number 2 in deep leagues, as he's not only playing multiple positions and playing all over the place and playing more often than a catcher would with less strain on his body. But also he's playing in course. So that offensive boost should help. And if that's not enough to convince you, Hunter Goodman had back-to-back 30 homer campaigns in the minors in 2022 and 23 before making his debut last year. So he's definitely got tons of power potential as well. I think a sneaky second catcher candidate in deep leagues for Hunter Goodman. Now let's take a look at some notable starting pitching performances. Let's first revisit our matchup of the day from yesterday. I mentioned Kris Bubic versus Jacob deGrom as a matchup I'd like to watch. Fortunately, I was at work, so I didn't get to watch. Hopefully some of you got to watch it for me, but we do get a chance to check out the numbers, and we'll start with Bubic, who went 5 innings, allowing 5 hits and 1 run. He walked 1 while striking out 8, inducing 9 whiffs and 28% CSW across 81 pitches. The fastball was absolutely incredible here. He induced 7 whiffs, and it was up to 19 inches of IVB. Last year it was at 17 inches, and I think throughout the spring it's been at 18, but 19 inches is bonkers, especially if he's maintaining 93 miles per hour with the pitch. It also allowed him to mix in 3 breaking pitches, a sweeper, a slider, and a change, and do so effectively because the fastball was so dominant here. And I really think this could work if the fastball sticks. Obviously, I don't think we're going to be getting this many strikeouts. 8 strikeouts in 5 innings on just 9 whiffs is not something you can expect to be repeated for Kris Bubic, but that fastball with 19 inches of IVB is totally dope. And if he can maintain, like I said, 93 miles per hour of velocity that we saw out of the bullpen last year, and we saw in this start as well, I think he was at 92.5. He should be pretty good with those trio of breaking pitches to help. And then opposite Bubic, we had Jacob deGrom, who went 4 innings, allowing 4 hits and 3 earned runs. He walked 1 while striking out 2, inducing 7 whiffs with 30% CSW across 70 pitches. Looks like he's ready for opening day. Though the fastball is down to 96, we want to see it up above 97 at least. That's what it was last year. I mean, he was at 99 back in his heyday a few years ago, but I would like to see that a little higher. However, if you look at the pitch chart here, incredible pitch separation. All the colors are perfectly separated. Absolutely beautiful. It allowed him to dominate with the changeup, which is a bit surprising. Maybe that pitch is more important for him this year as the velocity declines on the fastball and the slider. But I really think ultimately deGrom's going to be fine. If he's not a diminished version of his former self, I think that's still going to be fine in fantasy leagues. Maybe not a top 10 starter, but definitely somebody worth rostering in your standard leagues. Maybe the strikeouts aren't totally back, but I think Jacob deGrom will get you some wins and some good ratios. I'd like to also focus on one more starting pitching performance as Jack Kohanowitz went 7 innings, allowing 2 hits and 2 earned runs. He walked 2 while striking out 3, inducing 6 whiffs and 28% CSW across 76 pitches against a fully loaded Dodgers lineup. So to go 7 innings and allow just 2 earned runs and 4 base runners, pretty solid from Kohanowitz. He just secured the final rotation spot for the Angels heading into opening day. I'm not sure how fantasy relevant he's going to be. He was just sinker, slider, four-seamer in this one, and it was like 80+% sinker, slider. He had 2 whiffs on each of the pitches. I think the only really interesting thing here is that he threw a curveball last year, so a slider is definitely a new pitch. So maybe that pitch change allows for more whiffs, because last year, literally 0 whiff percentile and strikeout rate. I think he was at 9.6 or 9.8% strikeout rate. Not great, not a guy getting a lot of whiffs. That's expected for a guy throwing a sinker, but you really want to have whiffs if you want to have success. And obviously in fantasy, can't really have a pitcher, can't really roster a pitcher in most leagues if he's not going to get you any strikeouts. And that's what Kohanowitz does from time to time, but still able to shut down a Dodgers lineup fully loaded with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and all the other guys there. But maybe this slider can be the pitch that unlocks the strikeouts for Jack Kohanowitz. But that will do it for this episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Tomorrow we have no more games, but we do have opening day on Thursday. Still tune in tomorrow as I prepare you for the final bit of news ahead of opening day. And as we look forward to opening day, I'll set you up with some streamers and some hitter suggestions and relievers to watch as we enter the 2025 regular season. But like I said, that'll do it for this episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. Tune in live on YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast. And make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.